Hey everyone. So I know it's been a while. I actually haven't been done a video in way too long. So I really thought instead of, waiting longer till I had everything perfect, I'm just going to start the very first small part of ozone therapy now. And then I'm going to have successive parts and interviews with other people. Some of you know my story. I was very ill in my life. I had 4 autoimmune disorders and I had breast cancer. And over the time of probably about 2.5, 3 years, I was completely well. Diet is a main important factor. Adjunctive therapies like colonics and many things I've talked about in other videos are highly important. But there was one therapy that radically changed me so amazingly in my mid 40s that I really never looked back, and I haven't yet, now in my life, 20 years later. So I really want to talk about medical ozone. What is ozone? When someone talks about, they always say to me, "Oh, you mean oxygen?" Well, oxygen is O2, and we all know the little stories of people breathing oxygen and Michael Jackson laying in his oxygen hyperbaric chamber. But medical ozone is different. You have oxygen, which is O2, and ozone is its own atom attaching to the oxygen. And then you have, instead of O2, you have O3. The only sort of limitation is you can't really keep it. It must be made and activated live. The only way we can really keep it is to make it through olive oil, where we bubble it in olive oil for long enough to make a salve or make a cream out of it. And then we can cause that ozone to stay active within the oil. But right now, I just want to basically go over history. And before I start, I do want to say to everybody, we are living in a time right now on this earth, especially in America, where so many things seem to be suppressed. And because of other interests, it can be associations like the AMA, it can be big pharma, it can be even just the average person or company trying to make money. There's all sorts of reasons why we don't hear about things and we don't understand them and we're not taught them. And for many of us, like me, we have to become ill. And I know in my case, I prayed for many years and asked God so often to please show me something. And I always remember the messenger, because the messenger isn't always the person you think it's going to be when you get something brought to you. The beautiful thing about ozone is it's not a multi-level marketing thing. As far as I know, the biggest problem about ozone therapy, medical ozone, is that nobody can get the patent or the rights to it to keep it for themselves. And I think that's been one of the biggest problems. And that's why our AMA, and that's why it's been tried to be shut down when there is zero side effects. So ozone is pretty amazing. First, I just want to basically go over a history. I think some of us are a little scared of ozone because I remember in the 90s, we had an ozone generator in our house that was for air purification. And we didn't realize that you were not supposed to be breathing it. And I remember we turned it up pretty high and people were walking around with runny eyes and running noses thinking, well, it's strong, but it does work. And that was really a mistake. And even in using ozone within the body, we do not recommend that anybody breathes it unless you breathe it through olive oil and then you use a mask breathing it through the oil. So it can be irritating to the mucous membranes. But anyway, I'm going to quickly just go over this history of medical ozone. And what I want you to first notice is I'm starting at 1840. That's important because there was no AMA yet, no American Medical Association. Things weren't really organized the way they are today with control. So ozone was first discovered and named by a German scientist back in 1840. His name was Christian Friedrich Schonbein. The first ozone generators were developed by Werner von Siemens in Germany, 1857. So you go back here, they were using it in test tubes. There's a lot of German doctors that were using it at the time. There was a Dr. Day, and he was a pioneer of ozone therapy in Australia. He wrote a paper on ozone treatment for smallpox. Now look at this, 1878. Now, at my age group, we all looked at smallpox as needing a vaccine. And here was a doctor treating it naturally with ozone and eradicating it. And he wrote books on it. And these are publications that can be found today if you do your due diligence in finding books, etc. Always remember, there are healing remedies in this world. There always has been. Okay, and after him, the first American therapeutic use of ozone was by Dr. John Kellogg. You know, Kellogg cereals. Now, that's all gone to crap too, but Dr. Kellogg had a sanitarium where he treated people. And it went on for years, and people were made well. So he used the ozone steam saunas in New York, or Michigan, Battle Creek, Michigan Sanitarium from 1880. He was using ozone. I hope you're thinking like I am when I read this. What? Over 125 years ago? All this is going on and I don't know about ozone? Why don't I know about ozone? Okay, so he used it then. Okay, so Dr. Kellogg, and then in 1893, the first water treatment plant using ozone was installed in Holland. Today, there's over 3,000 municipalities around the world that use ozone to clean their water and sewage, including all the great cities. You know, we all know that people use ozone in their pools in their backyard as well, right? But that's outside our bodies. So people are like, oh, well, yeah, okay, they clean the drinking water, but okay. So we'll just keep going here. In 1885, the Florida Medical Association published a book called Ozone by Dr. Charles J. Kenworthy, MD, detailing the use of ozone for therapeutic purposes. When was the last time your doctor told you about this, right? Very cheap. No one makes money on it. That might be part of the reason. In September 1896, Nikola Tesla, you've heard of Tesla, not the guy making cars, but this is the original Tesla, patented his first ozone generator in 1900. He formed the Tesla Ozone Company. Tesla sold ozone machines and ozonated olive oil. Remember I told you earlier, you can run ozone through oil to make a thick cream. That's medically amazing. Does so many things, okay? So he marketed that to doctors for medical use. 100 years later, we're still using that oil. But again, are you hearing about the oil? Okay, so okay, in 1898, the Institute for Oxygen Therapy Healing was started in Berlin by two doctors. They experimented with injecting ozone. Ozone was bonded to magnesium in a catalytic process to create something called homozone, H-O-M-O-Z-O-N. If you've never heard of that and you have problems with your bowel and you have all sorts of issues with your colon, this is a wonderful treatment. Magnesium and ozone bound together. You buy it in a powder form and you take this by mouth. Now, this was developed, like I said, 1898. It is still being sold today. You must make sure that you buy the original formula by this doctor's family who originally developed it, Dr. Eugene Blass, 1898. Another doctor practicing in New York in 1898 established the practice of naturopathy based on ozone therapy. In 1898, another doctor in New York published his booklet describing the use of his invention, the thermo-ozone generator. In 1902, a dictionary of practical materia medica in London describes a successful use of ozonated water. Now, this is where we run ozone, the gas, through water and we bubble it until the water is saturated with ozone. We can take it by mouth and drink it. You can put it in ice cubes and take it. Ozone dentists will use it in the mouth for an antibacterial, antiviral, and it does all the good things, okay? So they were learning then about making it in water. This doctor in 1902 called it oxygenium, and he treated anemia, cancer, diabetes, influenza, morphine poisoning, canker sores, strychnine poisoning, and whooping cough with ozone water, freshly ozonated water that people drank. Think of that. Oh yeah, right. We haven't heard of this. In 1902, Dr. Charles Linder of Spokane, Washington, was written up in an article in a local paper that stated that he injected ozone as part of his standard medical practice. All right, 1904, the medical use of hydrozone, which is ozonated water again, and glycozone, which is ozonated olive oil, which is what I do. I make an ozonated olive oil here, and I bubble it for 3 to 4 weeks. So I bubble ozone and oxygen gas together, O3, through olive oil, extra virgin organic olive oil, and I bubble it until it turns into a salve or a cream. And this book was written in 1904 about it. And the book is in the Library of Congress with the U.S. Surgeon General stamp of approval on it. I hope I'm not belaboring my point here, people, but when I hear people cut down ozone, is it some newfangled thing that doesn't do anything? It does not hold water. This is truth, okay? I'm not going to belabor this a lot longer. I just want to go over some of the basic things of this. The active use of therapeutic ozone predates the establishment of the FDA in 1906 and therefore qualifies ozone therapy to be grandfathered into acceptance because all of this has been proven. So in 1911, a working manual of high-frequency currents was published by Dr. Noble Eberhardt, the head of Department of Physiologic Therapeutics of Loyola University, Chicago. In Chapter 9, he details the use of ozone to treat tuberculosis, anemia, chlorosis, tinnitus. How many people have ringing ears out there? Okay? Whooping cough, asthma, bronchitis, hay fever, insomnia, pneumonia, diabetes, gout, and syphilis. You getting woke up yet? You got health problems? You got issues? No one can help you? Yeah, that was me too. In 1912, Dr. H.C. Bennett published Electrotherapeutic Guide. He described the use of ozone, which is ozone breathed after running through eucalyptus, pine, or thyme oils. I've done that. I've got a breather apparatus. I put the ozone oil in there, breathe the ozone through the system. It's how you can take it without smelling it. Remember, I told you earlier, you don't want to be breathing in the ozone. So we run it through oil to breathe it. And so it gets into the lungs and it opens up with no side effects at all. So, 1913, the Eastern Association for Oxygen Therapy was formed by Dr. Eugene Blass and some German associates. During World War I, 1914 to 1918, ozone was used to treat wounds, trench foot, gangrene, and the effects of poison gas. We've just spent a year, more than a year, with this COVID virus thing. Okay, Dr. Albert Wolf of Berlin also used ozone water for colon cancer, cervical cancer, and decubitus ulcers in 1915. In 1920, Dr. Charles Nieswanger, MD, president of the Chicago Hospital College of Medicine, published Electrotherapeutical Practice, and he entitled it Ozone as a Therapeutic Agent. Remember how important all these people are that I'm reading you their names and what they did here, okay? I'm going to keep reading here a little bit more. In the 1920s, Nikola Tesla again allowed licensed production of an ozone air purifier in Canada based on his cold plasma design of his generators. In 1926, you might have heard of Dr. Otto Warburg of the Kaiser Institute in Berlin, announced that he had found that the cause of cancer is a lack of oxygen at the cellular level. He was awarded the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 1931 for his work on the oxygen transferring enzyme of cell respiration, and his second Nobel Prize in 1944 for his discovery of the hydrogen transferring enzyme. The only person ever to receive 2 Nobel Prizes for medicine. He was also nominated for a third. He showed that the primary cause of cancer is the replacement of the respiration of oxygen in normal body cells by the fermentation of sugar, and that no cancer cell exists which has the proper respiration intact of oxygen. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2005, I utilized oxygen and ozone, O3, to resolve my cancer. I did not do chemo or radiation. I do have the cancer gene, whatever that means, from the doctors. You know, they tell me I'm eventually going to die from it. So it's 2021, I'm still free of cancer, but they will not tell me that I can be cured because, you know, I have the gene according to them. So now they tell me that I'm just in remission. So that's interesting. So it's interesting here, Dr. Otto Warburg was way ahead of his time, and we don't hear about him much anymore. So many of these great doctors. In 1929, a book called Ozone and Its Therapeutic Action was published in the US, listing 114 diseases and how to treat them with ozone. It's 40 authors, that's 40, were all the heads of all the leading American hospitals. Are bells ringing for you yet? In 1930, the Swiss dentist Dr. E.A. Fish was using ozone in dentistry and wrote many papers on it. He also introduced it to the Austrian surgeon, Dr. Erwin Peyer, in 1932. And now we have, in the papers on the history of ozone, a defining line, because previous to this date, we did not have an American Medical Association. And all of this incredible work with ozone was done. All these incredible books were written. All these incredible doctors were healing people everywhere. And then we have this defining line, and I'll read it right now. In 1933, the American Medical Association, headed up by Morris Fishbein, set out to eliminate all medical treatments that were competitive to drug therapy. The suppression of ozone therapy in the US began then and continues to this day, except in 10 US states where doctors are protected by state laws. At the behest of the AMA, the FDA began seizing ozone generators in the 1940s. Anyway, there's a lot more on the historical aspects of ozone, and I'll get into it another time because look at how many minutes I'm at already. I wanted to quickly, I'm going to go over more with this. I'm going to do various sections on ozone and more videos. But what I really wanted to get across, my first part one, is it is historically a strong remedy. There are no side effects to ozone therapy. It is not like the drugs you take today that you need to be on a different drug for those symptoms and a different drug for that. Plus, we understand that when you take drugs, you're going to treat symptoms. You're not usually getting to the root cause of the problem. Now, some people have to be on certain drugs the rest of their life because their problems are very severe. I'm not speaking of that. I am speaking of health management by most of our doctors today for most illness, and most people do never get to the root cause of their problems. Now, I do a lab test here called GI map test through Diagnostic Solutions Lab, and we like to look at the bugs that are in the gut. But using ozone, what I'm talking about right now is another way of getting to root cause and understanding root cause, because if you look at what Dr. Otto Warburg had just said, what I read you was, if the root of all cancer is a lack of proper respiration of a cell, so instead of it being oxygenated, it's fermenting sugar, then can't you understand that to get oxygen to the root cells of your body and to the root of your blood, your basic beginnings? I mean, you have nucleuses, you have mitochondria in your cell, everything needs oxygen. And to reoxygenate the body, can you not just see simply here, not even being a doctor, how valuable it would be to fully oxygenate your body? I found in my story and with many of the people that I know that once we started introducing ozone, medical ozone, and the body started to become oxygenated, many symptoms started to fall away. So many of the, you might have a root problem here, like you say, oh, I have, an illness. Maybe you have, I don't know, rheumatoid arthritis. And then, and you have aching joints and you have those problems, but then coming out from that root, you have a myriad of other problems. Like maybe you've got skin issues, maybe you have regular headaches, maybe you don't poop every day. There's so many myriads of other sort of things that come out from that center. Well, what ozone does initially for so many people, they start taking it regularly, it just knocks out all these things. No more headaches, I'm feeling better. I have more energy every day. There's a lot of things that start to fall away. So we're going to talk further. I have had so many years now, since 2000 and basically 2002 or 3, working with and talking about and hearing so many stories, and my own story included, about ozone. And I've taken ozone almost every day since then in varying forms. Like we said earlier, you can bubble it through water. We bubble it through oil to make a salve, a cream, a hardened cream or oil. We can take it inside the body in different ways. We talked earlier about certain doctors that were even doing IV into the body. You can bring it into the body via catheters, vaginally or rectally. It can be brought into the ears for tinnitus. It can be, there's many ways, and we're going to talk about that in the future. But I really just wanted to go over just this very, very beginning here of the historical aspects of ozone therapy. I will say right now, in the last 20 years or so, there has been many, many, I would say 30 years. So I know in 1980, Dr. Horst Keefe reported success with ozone therapy for AIDS patients. And I do remember in the 80s when the basketball player Magic Johnson was diagnosed positively with HIV, and to this day he's living, and he's seems to be healthy. And we talk a lot about ozone. And I know that he did go to Germany. He has not come out, I don't think, and said that yet. But I know some of these German doctors at the ozone conferences will talk about different famous Americans who have gone there for ozone therapy, and Magic Johnson was one of the ones named. In 1980, F. Sweet, he published Ozone Selectively Inhibits Human Cancer Cell Growth in a peer-reviewed journal. The German medical textbook Medical Ozone is published by Dr. E. Fischer in Heidelberg, Germany. Germany is, to this day, uses a lot of ozone everywhere. Same with Russia, same with Cuba. So many countries in Europe. It's really been an American thing to shut it down. In 1983, the first International Ozone Association of Medical Ozone Conference was held in Washington, D.C. There are many more now as well. In 1990, the Cubans reported success in treating glaucoma, conjunctivitis, and retinitis pigmentosa with ozone. You can hear, I'm just sort of rambling now. Today, after 125 years of usage, ozone therapy is recognized in Germany, Italy, France, Russia, Romania, Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, Israel, Japan, Singapore, Brazil, Cuba, Mexico. 4 Canadian provinces and 14 U.S. states: Alaska, Washington, California, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, and Minnesota. So it's a pretty exciting thing, and I'm just trying to get the word out, especially in these times we're living in now, where we more than likely will be seeing more pandemics, more viral things across the world, and I just trying to get the word out. So anyway, this is part 1. I'm going to be continuing, you guys, so I'll be talking to you again soon. All right, so I already went too long. Look forward to part 2. Talk to you soon.